Hello and welcome to Elvenhome, and to this edition, which has a new locomotive for you to see, a change to the plan for the way the road will get into Weathertop, the result of a musing one Saturday evening about the railway, of course, and also further work on completing the scenic work around the depot yard and extending that on into the gasworks. So plenty to see. So let's get straight on and have a look at the continuing work after the discussion and my worry of the yin and yang of my depot yard. You'll recall in the last video that I was concerned at the starkness of the darkness of this side and the lightness of this side. And I'm really grateful to all of those of you who commented in the last video to remind me that actually it didn't look so bad from your point of view compared to mine, but also that you need to remember that there would be quite a lot of buildings in and around the depot area, so it's looking a bit bare at the moment. So I've started populating this a little bit. I'd forgotten, and it was really helpful to be reminded that there would be places for particular trades to go. There'd be a shunter's mess room, there would be a mess room for the train crew. This one is a depot mess room. P-way might have somewhere, S&T might have somewhere. So when you start putting all that back in, there'll be quite a few buildings. Now, I haven't yet found all the buildings that I like, but from what I had around, this is a little P-way hut, which will go out on the layout somewhere at some point. But once you start populating it, of course, you start breaking up what is this sea of darkness. And so that encouraged me to go on and complete the work down to where I intended it to stop. And when it would move from being this kind of general muddy, ashy thing, that's got Redutex light stone sets on it. I'll take a closer look. And I've put a couple of sheets down onto there, which I've then weathered down with various weathering powders, certainly black soot, certainly light earth. I think some concrete dust went in there in some places. And then I had a go at it with a damp sponge, just to try and blot and blend everything together. And finally I put some of the oxide, copper oxide, which is really good at getting a kind of ashy feel, and it's darker in and around the coal stage, as you'd expect, because there's coal dropping down there, so there's coal dust and all sorts of things, than it is in other parts. And then I turned my attention to this area, and you'll see, he said, if I point the camera to where I had my hand, to this area, and you'll see that this has changed rather. So I'm just going to put a piece in here which shows me working on this area and how I've gone about taking it from looking like this to looking like that. So I started off using the WWS black soot. You'll also see that I have a habit of putting the brush on my hand, and when I started this I'd already loaded the brush with black soot. So if you look at my hand, if I show you the inside, you'll see it's covered in black soot. After that I went on to using the light earth, and I'm just trying to blend the two of them together now. And then I went to a different size brush in the hope that that would give me a different look to what was being brushed on. And then I turned to copper oxide, which I think is really useful for suggesting ash. And just again now trying to break up the darkness of the soot, and then a bit more with different size brushes just to see if we can break it up, and just keep working it until I was happy with the final result. And I was getting pretty close by this point, that I was happy that this was looking closer to what you might find around the depot. And here you can see the finished thing and how it was before, and how it's just darkened down what I was worried about the first time, which was how light it was. As I said, this has really helped me get rid of the problem that I thought I had, which was about how this was too light and what was I going to do about it. And so I will finish off by doing these parts. And I think this would be muckier and dirtier near the depot because that's where the engines are. Whereas it's less true here. I may have a go at some of this with some weathering powders at some point. I'll wait and see because I've still got more work to do to finish off the detailing and put more buildings in on this side. I think what I'm going to do is use Model Rail Scotland and have a good hunt around there at what's about so that I can pick up. One thing I have done is just taken this van body. Let's just get this so if you can see, get it into focus, which I've done, put some light grey paint on and then some various weathering powders just to make that a grounded van body as a kind of storehouse that's being used on the depot somewhere. And I think I'll probably scratch build some more mess rooms of different kinds. There's something I want near the entrance if I come round here. You can see I've fixed the wall in place, and I'm grateful to all of you that commented about the gates. You saw my gates last time round, and I had managed to fit them on upside down so that the bar was going in the wrong direction. I'd copied the gates that come with the gasworks kit. The only trouble is I had the gates upside down when I copied them. However, they are now the right way around and they're now fixed in place. And I'll talk a little bit more about that end of the layout a bit later because there's a couple of things. I've started work on laying out that end and there's a change, a nice change I think, which really helps me how to get a road into and out from Weathertop. But on this area, I think I'm pretty much there now. I've got, as I said, more decoration work to do around here. I haven't made my mind up yet what's going to be here entirely. One thing I am coming to the conclusion about is that signal box is going to have to go. I think it was about the second thing that I ever built. It's a Metcalfe signal box. They're fantastic little kits. But when I built that, it has no interior and it has no lights. And if there's one thing that really helps on a layout, it's a lit signal box. You may recall the signal box that I scratch built for High Elven. And it really adds to something when you see the trains coming in past the signal box, it has a signalman in with a full signal frame. So I'm on the lookout for a replacement. I've got my eye on one, but we'll see. We'll see what's available. Again, I think Model Rail Scotland is going to be a hunting ground for me. Possibly the exhibition at York, which I'm intending to go down to in early April. So I've got my list of things to buy at various exhibitions as I go through. So I think that brings you up to date with the scenic work that I've been doing here. What I will do, I think now, is take you down onto the desk, because one of the things I was musing in the last video was how I would get the ammoniacal liquid into the tanker. And I was musing on this one Saturday evening, and a thought occurred to me about how one might take various kinds of strip styrene to create a gantry for filling the tanker. And I'll show you what my diseased mind came up with. This is the result of my musings one Saturday evening. I'd been looking at various websites, one which I can't remember whether I gave a link to it the last time round. The diagram that you saw me do a couple of editions ago of a small gasworks is part of a really good website which has lots of information about industrial processes by I'm not sure if I think it is an N-gauge modeler. And it's just really full of really useful information, the type of tanks that would be used, including some advice on things that you might need to scratch build because you can't actually buy them. And among the things that were on there was of a petrochemical plant where petrol or other liquid fuel would be delivered into tanks, and it had a kind of delivery system. It didn't look quite right for me. Particularly for the tar tanks, where I think that's going to be a thicker kind of consistency. But it wasn't far off for the ammoniacal liquid, but it still didn't give me quite what I wanted. What I wanted was a gantry. And so I started playing around with various sizes of strip styrene H-beam, which is what the four legs are made up from. And I essentially made two frames. The frames are actually made this way round. So there's a top piece and a bar that goes across there to create the frame. The top walkway is from a kit that I bought when I was looking at it as a possibility for the walkway on the engine shed. And I cut a few pieces off to give me the platform shape that I wanted. And then are some L-shaped strip styrene. This is all fairly small stuff, sort of 1.5 millimeters. That provided a frame into which I then set the legs of this frame. I put a piece across here to just give it strength, really. I'm not sure you would actually have a huge great sheet of steel or aluminium or whatever it would be, but it does give it some rigidity. And this fence that I've got here is left over from when I built the station hotel, because it lines the walkways on the roof of the station hotel. The last thing I needed was the means of actually delivering, because it was quite easy, fairly straightforward business. I've put a ladder on, which is the kit that actually normally has a roll cage. I didn't bother with a roll cage here. One, because I don't think they were used universally. And two, because I discovered, like many people, I always thought the roll cage was there to help arrest a fall. In fact, it does nothing of the kind. There's no evidence that it arrests a fall, and indeed it may cause injury rather than anything else. They were first designed and put on in the mining industry to protect men climbing up a ladder from objects falling from above. So I thought, well, there's not likely to be much falling from above here, so that saved me having to put the roll cage on. So that gives me the ladder that gives them access to the top. And then I went back into my little box that I'd got from P&D Marsh of various pipework to give me the 3 pieces of pipework that are here, which have bits of white rod which fit on either side. And then for the top here, I put a square piece of strip styrene over the hole on the top of the rod and drilled a 0.7 millimeter hole through. And this is some of the rodding that I bought to make the downpipes for the viaduct. And on the end, if I bring it up to the camera a bit closer, you will see there's some heat shrink. I've got some very small 1 millimeter heat shrink or 2 millimeter heat shrink, which I put on and shrunk down to give me my hose pipe. And that is now absolutely the right height for the tanker to pass underneath and be able to stop. And they'd be able to open up the hatch. This would be put in through a valve because it is a closed loop system, I discovered. As I mused in the last episode, you wouldn't be pouring ammoniacal liquid through an open hose into the top as if you were filling a milk churn. It would probably kill you. So this is a closed loop system. So I'll show you in a moment. I'll take this back and put it on the layout where it's going to be. Once we've had a look, I think, at my newest engine, which arrived, I think, the day after the last video went up. So let's go and have a look at that. As even as South Africa goes through the frame, I'm really impressed with this locomotive. I like the touches of the silvered buffers. It runs very well. It was a bit noisy when it first started. It's certainly a much quieter engine than the earlier motor than the earlier A4s that I've got. I may or may not put sound in that. I'll have to have a think. But it's a lovely locomotive, and it's good to see it going around the layout. You can see in front of you the delivery gantry with the tanker below it for taking the ammoniacal liquid. I will build something for delivering the tar into the tar tanks. It won't need to be as high a gantry, I don't think. But you know, emboldened by having been able to build one, I'm sure I can build something to deliver the tar into the tar tanks. I'm in the process of, which you can probably see, or maybe you can't see, I'm putting down paving along the line of the gasworks. If I move one of the gasometers out the way, you will be able to see it. You can just see that paving going through, and it's fatal when you go back to a part of the layout that you've not worked on for a while and have a look at what you did, because I got up to the church school and thought, this new paving, if I bring a piece of it in, which I've just started to paint, if I bring it in and it goes into focus, there we go. It's from KS Laser Designs. It's just MDF, and as you can see, it's you can fit lengths together. They also do external and internal corners, which are on the layout. Once I've got it painted up, I'll give you a closer look. So the paving in front of the War Memorial to the left and the right, the Metcalfe paving has been lifted. And in the process of doing that, I was looking at the railings and the layout for the school, for the playgrounds. And I thought, they're not very good, really. I painted, they were scale model scenery MDF laser cut railings. And they're perfectly fine. I'd overpainted them. I'd painted them with too thick acrylic paint. and thinking about, well, if I was going to replace them. So N-Brass Locos is sending me some of their etched brass hooped railings, and I think I'll change the layout of the playground for the school, and at some point I'm going to sit down and paint children to go in the playground. Henrik very kindly sent me a set of knock school figures, which I still have, and I do intend to put into the layout, but I need more children in that playground. But painting children in N-Gage is really very, very demanding. But nonetheless, we will get on with it. So the work for me over the next couple of weeks is to continue the build. I have an idea for the fencing that will come up to a set of gates, and you can see the gates lying there. I put a piece of the set stone, which this is what I started with before I set to weathering it, and then I'll want to put I think a dustier base for some part around the railway, and I may well have a go at a layout that Chris from Bognor Regis was really impressed by, a chap who'd been able to do a look of a dirty coal yard using sand. So I've acquired some fine sand, and I'll have a play with that, I think. And then the other thing, which you probably noticed in the running session, is the addition on the layout of a level crossing. I had this Pico kit. I think I bought it before I bought the baseboards. And when I first saw it, I thought, oh, that's a fiddly little kit to put together. And of course, it's not at all. It's a really good little kit to put together, and very easy to put together. And just painted it up. But the idea suddenly came to me that if I could fit a level crossing in there, that would be a more natural place for the road to come in and then swing round by the school, rather than the rather tortuous construction I was going to have of it going round the back of the canal base and climbing up the hill. So that's what's going to happen. The whiteboard that you can see in place, the foam, is just to hold a marker. It's not going to be anywhere near as big or as wide as that. I've got to make up my mind precisely where the road will go, but that is where the level crossing is going to be. And I've also put back on the layout the shape of the canal basin, which is really quite important that I get that back on. Otherwise I'm going to start building things around here and then find I haven't got room for the for the canal basin, which I do want to put on there and will be putting on there. So with a bit of luck, I think in the next couple of weeks I would like to get the scenic work from the entrance to the depot all the way up to the school completed. And then I will be able to work out where I've got room to put the brewery on, which is currently where the crane is, the grab is sitting. I think the gasworks fence is obviously going to come along here and then run along that side of the line, and then the brewery is probably going to sit about here, I think. So possibly extending out a little bit from where this edge currently finishes, because it was originally served by the canal, and then it just had to revert to using the road once the canal really stopped being a usable thing. So all that waffle, that really brings me to the end of this week's video. If you've enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up, and of course if you've got any comments that you want to let me have, then please do. I really enjoy getting the comments, and they're all so helpful. And if you've not subscribed, well, please do subscribe, because it'd be great to have you along. But until I speak to you in about a couple of weeks' time, that's bye-bye from me. Bye-bye. Hello and welcome to Elvenhome, and to this edition which shows more work on putting scenery in various places. I have no idea what it's involved actually, come to think about it. Why would I know?